Eirik turned back to the tapestry one last time before steeling himself. The truth had been revealed, but it was only the beginning, and Odin would not let it remain hidden for long. The flickering torchlight cast long, restless shadows against the stone walls as Eirik emerged from the hidden chamber. His mind reeled with the weight of what he had seen, the tapestry, the prophecy, the silent betrayal woven into fate itself. Odin had always been revered as the All-Father, the protector, the wise leader who guided them toward Ragnarok with purpose. But now a question gnawed at him like a starving wolf. Was their war truly for honor, or were they merely sacrifices to prolong Odin's reign? Freya had vanished into the darkness, leaving him to navigate this revelation alone. And yet he was not truly alone. The halls of Valhalla, once so welcoming, now felt suffocating, the echoes of laughter and clashing tankards ringing hollow in his ears. He wove through the corridors, passing throngs of warriors lost in their endless revelry. Their trust in Odin was unshaken, their spirits unburdened by doubt. Could he be the only one to see the cracks in this golden illusion? No, there had to be others. Eirik's steps carried him toward the training grounds, a vast courtyard where warriors tested their skills against one another. Here, even in paradise, they honed their craft, preparing for the final battle. Among them he sought those whose resolve had not dulled with time, warriors who still questioned, who still thirsted for more than blind obedience. It was there he found Ulf the Silent and Sigrun the Keen-Eyed. Ulf was a bear of a man, his muscles thick as tree trunks, his expression ever unreadable. He spoke little but saw much, a veteran of countless wars whose loyalty had always been to the blade, not the throne. Sigrun, once a mortal shield maiden, had been among the fiercest of Odin's warriors, her eyes sharp as the raven's gaze. If anyone could understand his unease, it would be them. He approached as they sparred, their weapons clashing in a dance of steel and fury. Sigrun, noticing his stare, disengaged first, breathing hard but steady. "You watch like a man with ghosts. On his back, Eirik. Speak your mind." Ulf grunted in agreement, planting his sword into the dirt. "You've been restless for weeks. What troubles you?" Eirik hesitated. Speaking the truth aloud would make it real, would force him onto a path he could never return from. But silence was no longer an option. "I found something," he began, voice. "Something Odin never intended us to see." Their eyes sharpened. He told them of the hidden chamber, the tapestry, and the truth it revealed. That Odin did not stand with them in Ragnarok, but apart, watching as they perished. Silence stretched between them. Sigrun was the first to break it, her voice measured, but laced with unease. "If what you say is true, then everything we have fought for is a lie." "Aye," Eirik said, his jaw tightening. "And if we are nothing but sacrifices, then we must ask ourselves, do we still fight for him or do we fight for ourselves?" Ulf folded his arms, eyes narrowing. "This is dangerous talk, Eirik. Treason. It is only treason if Odin is worthy of our loyalty," Eirik countered, "and I fear he is not." Sigrun exhaled sharply, glancing around to ensure they were not overheard. "If we are to question him, we must be certain. If we act too soon, we will be crushed before we have a chance to stand." Eirik nodded. "Then we gather more who will listen. We move in shadows, as Odin does. He has had centuries to weave his schemes. We must be swift to unravel them." Ulf finally nodded, his usual silence replaced with a single word. "Agreed." Unbeknownst to them, they were not the only ones moving in shadows. From the highest halls of Valhalla, Odin sat upon his throne, watching. His single eye, ever seeing, missed little in his domain. He had felt the disturbance, sensed the whispers of doubt taking root like weeds among his warriors. And now, through the unseen gaze of his ravens, he saw the first seeds of rebellion. He had expected this. The tapestry had been hidden well, but nothing remained buried forever. The question was not whether his warriors would doubt him. The question was how he would respond. Odin leaned forward, fingers steepled. "Eirik the Unyielding, your name has always been well earned." A raven cawed from the rafters, its black, eyes gleaming with intelligence. "Watch him," Odin commanded, his voice low but commanding. "Let him believe he walks unnoticed. When the time comes, he will learn the price of defiance. The raven took flight, vanishing into the darkness, and Odin, the Allfather, the weaver of fate, allowed himself a small, knowing smile. The game had begun. The golden halls of Valhalla gleamed under the eternal torchlight, their high ceilings echoing with the laughter and songs of fallen warriors. Long tables stretched across the vast hall, laden with endless feasts and overflowing horns of mead. It was a place of honor, a warrior's paradise, yet tonight something felt different. A whisper of unease stirred the air, unnoticed by most but impossible to ignore for one man. Eirik the Unyielding sat at the far end of a banquet table, his calloused hands wrapped around a drinking horn he had yet to sip from. Around him, the Einherjar reveled in their endless victory feasts, but Eirik found no comfort in the celebrations. He had fought, died, and ascended to Valhalla, yet the promise of eternal glory felt hollow. Ragnarok loomed, and with it, the final battle for which he and his brethren had been gathered. But why did it feel like they were waiting for something more than war? Something unseen, something hidden. His thoughts were interrupted as a shadow loomed over him. He looked up to see a figure clad in deep blue and silver, her presence quiet, yet commanding. Freyja, goddess of love and war, stood before him, her piercing gaze holding an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. Unlike Odin, whose wisdom often carried the weight of manipulation, Freyja's knowledge was tempered with something more elusive, compassion and doubt. "You do not drink, Eirik," she observed, her voice soft yet firm. "Nor do you revel, as your brothers do." Eirik hesitated before answering. "I do not know if I have reason to." Freyja's eyes flickered with understanding. She lowered her voice, leaning in ever so slightly. "You sense it too, don't you? The unspoken truth beneath the feast and song." Eirik met her gaze, his grip tightening on the drinking horn. "I feel like a pawn on a board whose game I do not understand." A slow nod from the goddess confirmed his fears. "Then perhaps it is time you saw the board for yourself." Without another word, she turned, gliding through the hall. Eirik hesitated only a moment before rising to follow. They moved through the great hall unnoticed, past warriors lost in their revelry. Freyja led him through a side passage, its walls carved with ancient runes that pulsed faintly under the torchlight. The air grew heavier with each step, the scent of feasting and mead fading into the cool, earthy aroma of stone and time. Finally, they reached a door he had never seen before. Massive, ancient, adorned with sigils that made his skin crawl. Freyja pressed her hand to the surface, and the sigils shimmered before fading into nothingness. The door groaned open, revealing a narrow spiral staircase descending into darkness. Eirik hesitated. "What is this place?" "The truth," Freyja whispered, "and perhaps the end of all things." They descended in silence, the flickering torches casting elongated shadows along the walls. The stairway seemed endless, spiraling deeper than any structure in Valhalla should allow. Finally, they emerged into a vast underground chamber, its ceiling lost to darkness. At its center stood a great tapestry, woven with threads of starlight. Shifting and shimmering like the cosmos itself, Eirik stepped forward, eyes widening as he beheld the images woven within its threads. The tapestry depicted Ragnarok, the great wolf Fenrir breaking free, Thor clashing with Jormungandr, the heavens burning, the gods falling. But there was something wrong. In the heart of the chaos, one figure remained untouched, standing amidst the ruin Odin. His expression was neither sorrowful nor defiant. It was calculating. Eirik's breath caught in his throat. He had been taught that Odin fought alongside them, that he would fall in battle as prophecy dictated. Yet here, in the threads of fate itself, the Allfather stood apart from the war, untouched by doom. "Impossible," he whispered. This cannot be." Freyja's voice was distant, tinged with sorrow. "The Norns wove this tapestry long before your time. It is a hidden prophecy, one Odin wished never to be seen." Eirik turned to her, his mind reeling. "You knew of this?" "I suspected," she admitted. "Odin has always kept his own counsel, but I did not know for certain until now." Eirik stared at the tapestry, at the silent betrayal woven into its threads. His entire existence, his very purpose, had been to fight for Odin in Ragnarok. But if this was true, if Odin had already planned to survive while they perished, then everything he had believed was a lie. A cold fury settled over him. "What do we do?" Freya's gaze was unreadable. "That is for you to decide." A taser, faint sound echoed from the stairwell, the scrape of boots on stone. Someone was coming. Freya stepped back into the shadows. "Choose wisely, Eirik. The fate of the gods may rest on what you do next." The halls of Valhalla, once a sanctuary of feasting and honor, had become a prison of whispers and suspicion. Eirik moved through the grand corridors with measured steps, each echoing footfall a reminder of the delicate game he now played. The revelation of Odin's betrayal had set fire to his resolve, but he knew that conviction alone would not be enough. If he was to challenge the All-Father, he would need allies, more than just Ulf and Sigrun. He would need warriors willing to forsake the gods themselves, but such warriors were not easily found. Word of Eirik's discontent had begun to spread, carried on the lips of those who still clung to their faith in Odin's wisdom. Eyes lingered, on him longer than before, and the presence of Valkyries near the training grounds and feasting halls had doubled. Odin was watching, waiting, preparing. Eirik had to act swiftly. Late that night, beneath the cold glow of the moon, he and his closest allies gathered in a secluded chamber, far from the All-Father's ever-seeing gaze. A dozen warriors stood before him, their expressions a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. Among them were those who had long harbored doubts, those who had lost faith in the endless cycle of war and feasting. One of them, a scarred warrior named Kjell, folded his arms. "You risk much by bringing us here, Eirik. If Odin catches wind of this, there will be no escape." "I know the risk," Eirik replied, "but the risk of inaction is far greater. We have all fought and died in his name. We were promised a glorious end at Ragnarok, to stand beside the gods in one final battle. But what if that promise was a lie? What if Odin has never planned to fight alongside us?" Murmurs rippled through the gathered warriors, doubt creeping into their once unshakable faith. Sigrun stepped forward, her voice clear and unwavering. "We have seen proof. A tapestry hidden beneath Valhalla, woven by the Norns themselves. It shows Ragnarok as we were told, but with one difference. Odin does not fall. He does not fight. He watches as we die." The chamber fell into stunned silence. "Lies," growled a warrior at the back. "A trick to sow discord." "Would I risk everything for a trick?" Eirik countered. "Would I ask you to stand against the greatest of gods if I were not certain?" Kjell studied Eirik for a long moment before nodding. "If this is true, then what do? We cannot march against Odin. We would be cut down before we reached the gates." Eirik took a breath. "We do not fight him, not yet. We gather strength. We find others who question. And when the time comes, we do what no one has ever dared. We defy the gods themselves." For a moment, no one spoke. Then, slowly, one by one, the warriors nodded their assent. The first sparks of rebellion had been lit, but high above, perched in the shadows of Valhalla's great halls, a raven watched. It tilted its head, black eyes glinting with silent understanding before spreading its wings and vanishing into the night. The message was already on its way to Odin. The raven returned to Odin, its shadow fleeting across the cold stone floor of his throne room. The All-Father listened to its silent report, his single eye narrowing as the whispers of rebellion solidified into a tangible threat. Eirik's defiance was a crack in the foundation of his power, a crack that could widen into a chasm if left unchecked. But Odin was not one to be caught unprepared. He summoned his Valkyries, their armor gleaming like polished silver under the eternal twilight of Valhalla. "The time has come," he declared, his voice resonating with ancient power. "Bring Eirik the Unyielding to me alive." The Valkyries bowed, their wings beating the air as they departed, swift and silent as the coming storm. Meanwhile, Eirik and his growing band of rebels had moved beyond whispers. They trained in secret, their movements honed not for the glory of battle, but for survival. The tapestry's revelation had ignited a fire within them, a yearning for freedom from Odin's manipulative grasp. They would no longer be pawns in his game, but Valhalla was vast, and Odin's reach was long. The attack came without warning. Valkyries descended upon them like avenging angels, their blades singing a song of death. Eirik and his warriors fought, with the ferocity of cornered wolves, their desperation fueling their strength. But the Valkyries were relentless, their numbers seemingly endless. Sigrun fell first, a Valkyrie's spear piercing her heart. Ulf roared in grief, his axe cleaving. Through armor and bone, but even his strength could not hold them back forever. One by one, Eirik's allies were cut down, their dreams of rebellion dying with them. Eirik found himself alone, back to back with Kjell, the scarred warrior who had first questioned him. "It seems we underestimated the All-Father," Kjell gasped, his breath ragged. "We may fall," Eirik replied, his grip tightening on his sword, "but we will not break." They fought on, a whirlwind of steel against the tide of Valkyries, but it was a losing battle. Kjell fell, an arrow through his throat, and Eirik found himself surrounded, his sword arm heavy, his body battered and bruised. The Valkyries parted, and Odin himself stepped forward. His expression was unreadable, his single eye fixed on Eirik with chilling intensity. "You have defied me," Odin said, his voice a low rumble. "You have spread dissent among my warriors. You have challenged the very order of the cosmos." Eirik met his gaze, his defiance unwavering. "We were your warriors, your chosen, but you betrayed us, you lied to us. We are not pawns, All-Father. We are not sacrifices." A flicker of something, perhaps surprise, perhaps anger, crossed Odin's face. "You dare question my wisdom. You dare challenge the fate I have woven." "Fate is not a chain, it is a river," Eirik declared, using the words of the Norns before they were silenced. "And even a river can change its course." Odin's eye narrowed. "Then you leave me no choice." He raised his hand, and the Valkyries moved to strike. But before their blades could fall, a voice echoed through the chamber. "Enough!" Freya stepped forward, her presence radiating a power that rivaled Odin's own. She held a single thread, shimmering with starlight, a thread pulled from the very tapestry Eirik had discovered. "The Norns have spoken, Odin," she declared. "Their prophecy is clear. Your reign ends here." Odin scoffed. "You side with these mortals. You betray your own kind?" "I side with truth," Freya replied. "And the truth is, you have become what you sought to destroy, a tyrant, clinging to power at the cost of all else." She raised the thread, and the tapestry in the hidden chamber began to unravel. The image of Odin, standing untouched amidst the ruin of Ragnarok, faded, replaced by a new vision. A vision of mortals and gods standing together, rebuilding, forging a new destiny. Odin's power, tied to the tapestry's prophecy, began to wane. His form flickered, his control over Valhalla slipping. The Valkyries, their loyalty bound to his will, faltered. Eirik seized the moment. He lunged forward, his sword aimed not at Odin, but at the ground beneath his feet. The blade struck stone, and a crack spread through the floor of Valhalla, widening into a fissure that threatened to swallow the All-Father whole. Odin, stripped of his power, his immortality fading, could only watch as the foundations of his kingdom crumbled around him. He looked at Eirik, and his single eye, once filled with cosmic knowledge, there was only emptiness. The All-Father fell. The battle was over. Valhalla, once a symbol of eternal war and glory, was shattered, but from its ruins a new hope emerged. Eirik, no longer a pawn but a leader, stood among the survivors, mortals and gods who had chosen to defy fate. Freya, her task complete, faded into the background, leaving Eirik to guide this new world. The tapestry, now blank, awaited anew, weaving, a tapestry not of fate but of choice. And Eirik, the unyielding, the mortal who had dared to challenge the gods, knew that the true battle had just begun. The battle to build a future where mortals and gods could coexist, where destiny was not dictated but forged.